The main feature of the evening, and this is a short story that I wrote several years ago. I had a very good friend who worked for the county, Great County Roads Department, and I used to drive a snowplow in the winter. He would get talking to me about what it was like being out there in the snowplow, you know, and those guys are on the road when the roads are the worst, okay? Like, I mean, you know, when things are really bad, they're still out there, you know, trying to make things possible for the rest of us. So anyway, I like to write stories about Christmas anyway because I find it to be a very poignant and emotional time of the year. And so I kind of put the two ideas together about my friend in the snowplow and coming up with a Christmas story. And I wrote Angel in the Snow. About 3 years ago, I was lucky enough to get a chance to perform the story several times. And it was very successful, went over very well. So I'm very thankful to be invited here tonight to get an opportunity to read Angel in the Snow again. And I have a few notes I wrote down here. You know, I've long been of the opinion that the people who pioneered in the Canadian wilderness have been driving cars. Think about that. First pioneers in there with cars. They would have left after the first winter, right? There'd be nobody here now. Right? Because, you know, like, but anyway, most of us have faced like a harrowing winter driving experience where you sort of can't see the front end of your car, can't tell where the road is, wind screaming, temperature 40 below, got a knot sort of in your stomach and you're white knuckling it down the highway and it's like you're in Ontario somewhere in the winter. So anyway, in this story, it's Christmas Eve, it's storming. And a down-on-his-luck snowplow operator is trying to get back to the county garage to stay out the storm. And he's really not having a very good time with life, but what's about to happen to him changes that way and changes the way he feels about how his life's going. So sit back and relax, and I'll read you my short story, Angel in the Snow. The storm was worsening. The wind was howling and snow screamed across the roadway as the huge snowplow lumbered along, trying to keep the way clear for motorists who rode on such a miserable evening. Jim hated the winters, when plowing snow became part of his job with the county works department. Hadn't bothered him as much when he'd been a young guy, but these all-night shifts keeping the roads passable in poor weather were a real struggle now as he reached toward his 50th birthday. Especially since the county had decided it would save money by putting a single man in each of the big plows instead of the usual two. They were saving a little money, but they were risking a lot. In really bad weather, it was everything he could manage to push snow at the blade, keep the sander and salter in operation, and drive the truck when visibility was poor and there was a constant chance of a stranded motorist in the middle of the roadway or off to the side of the road. And on this night, Christmas Eve, he had other things on his mind besides plowing snow. His young daughter had died of cancer this past summer. He'd watched the once vibrant teen waste away before his eyes. She had been his pride and joy, their only child, and his one true happiness in life. It had been the most tragic time of his life and had plunged him into true despair for the first time. Then his wife of over 20 years had left 2 months later, apparently for greener pastures. Unable to face her grief and no longer content with the mere county man and the father of her child, upgrading to an insurance agent who was president of the curling club. She'd said he could no longer make her happy since their daughter had died and that the love had gone from their relationship. It'd be news to him, but it didn't seem open for discussion. So when he came back from work one day to find a note stuck to the front of the fridge announcing that she'd moved out, there was little more he could do than weep openly and get drunk, both of which he did, and not necessarily in that order. It was why there was a bottle stashed under the seat of the truck even now. He told himself that it was for his nerves, but he really knew it was because he no longer gave a damn. So what if he got fired and lost his pension? He didn't even know why he had a pension anymore. When his daughter had died and his wife had left, any thoughts of future retirement had left with them. What was the point? Nothing had a point anymore. He'd surprised everyone by volunteering to work over Christmas. He had plenty of seniority and could have pulled rank to get the big holiday off. But there was nothing for him at Christmas this year. His sister had wanted him to come to her place, but she had her own family, and he thought she really didn't need a depressed old man hanging out around the Christmas tree. Driving the snowplow would help keep his mind off how lousy he felt to be alone at Christmas for the first time in his life. He wheeled the truck around a corner, off the main highway and onto one of the secondary roads. Just as he completed the maneuver, the radio crackled to life. "Hoy, Jim, how's it going out there?" asked the radio operator, an older Works Department employee named Ernie. "It's getting pretty rough," Jim answered. "The drifts are really starting to build up, and the snow is coming down heavier and the wind is picking up. I'm having trouble seeing much past the front of the truck sometimes." "I know," Ernie answered. "The police have just issued a stay off the road warning, so you should hightail it back to the garage for the night. We're pulling the plows." "Nice Christmas present," Jim said. "Yeah, and the weather service says the worst is still headed our way," said the dispatcher's voice. "We'll just have to hope that people are smart enough to stay off the roads." "There ain't nobody out here now," Jim answered. "I think everybody's where they gotta be for Christmas. We might as well batten down the hatches and stay out the storm. Put the coffee on, I'm headed for home." "I'll warm up your chair," Ernie answered. "It'll just be you and me and Santa Claus." "See you later," Jim said. Over and out. The radio clicked off and Jim was left with only the howling of the wind for company. He needed to get turned around and start making his way back to the highway. While a warm chair and a coffee sounded great, he was a long way from the county garage. He had miles to go yet before he slept. And turning around a larger-than-life snowplow on a county road was no easy feat in good weather. He decided to wait until he reached the next intersection. That should provide the necessary space to swing the big truck around and get it pointed in the other direction. But even now, he could feel the truck starting to work harder and harder to push the ever-increasing accumulation of snow. The stuff looked great, especially at Christmas, but there were times when it got really dangerous. Visibility was so bad by now that he missed the intersection and plowed through to the other side before he realized what had happened. He brought the truck to a stop and ground it into reverse, gradually easing through where he thought the other side of the road was. Then he slowly swung the truck to the left, guiding it sort of by instinct, having to hope that he was lined up properly with the intersecting roadway. He could not see a darn thing, and finally stopped the truck at what he thought was the middle of the intersection. He briefly considered getting out to check exactly where he was, but decided against it. He'd just go slowly and feel his way along the road. He started to edge slowly back, and all seemed to be going well. He was reasonably sure he was on track, until he felt the truck seem to start to slide almost out from under him. He heard a sickening crunch, and the back of the truck dropped from the roadway, lifting the front wheels completely off the ground and leaving it marooned in the blizzard. He swore silently, then gathered his parka about him to prepare to face the elements. He'd have to see what the damage was. The blowing snow nearly knocked him off his feet when he first got out of the truck, and he struggled against it and held onto the side of the truck for balance. He was up to his knees in the white stuff as he made his way toward the back of the plow.